So crowdfunding is really interesting. It's gone from an idea that's been around for a long time, hundreds of years, to since 2009, exploded as a phenomenon. So this is the idea that to make a project happen, an idea, a play, a technology, an innovation, you gather, instead of going to one funding source, you might go to the internet and ask 1 million people to each give you $1 or $2 to make something happen. Right now, who gets to innovate is limited by who has money. So even though the costs of innovation have dropped dramatically, something like 3 orders of magnitude since 1999 to launch a software company, the ability to raise the money is still quite difficult. And the problem is that venture capitalists who traditionally do the funding for startups are biased in a lot of ways. So women tend to be less likely to receive funding than men, proportionally. If you're not well connected to top universities, you're less likely to receive funding. Funding is often very local, so VCs tend to invest in companies within 90 miles of where they're located. So all of those things push down the number of people whose innovations can actually come to light. And if you believe that there's a lot of innovative people out there with lots of interesting ideas, which is what all our research shows us, then there's something very wrong with this system. The nice thing about crowdfunding is distance doesn't matter. A study that we have shows women actually do better than men at raising funds through crowdfunding. It allows a much more democratic view of who gets access to capital and which innovations come to light. And I think that's leading to an explosion of exciting new forms of innovation. There's been a lot of work over the last 20 years showing that a lot of the innovations that come from large firms actually originate with users, right? So users figure out how to use the product in new ways to solve a need, and they go to manufacturers and large firms to help them figure out how to solve that problem on an ongoing basis, right? And if you do surveys and you look back, it turns out that huge amounts of the key innovations that have come out of industrial labs actually start as these user innovations. What's both exciting and somewhat threatening about Kickstarter is now, instead of having to go to a large company and say, hey, help me make this surgical device that I created for my surgery better, you now instead can go raise money to do that yourself. Right? So I think that it is exciting because it allows more innovation to happen and more chances of looking at what the future of a technology is, testing out ideas before they ever come to market. There's also a bit of a competitive threat here, which is, are people still going to look to large firms to innovate when they can do it themselves? So you may ask what large firms could do about this. And there's a few things. First of all, my research shows that almost all the Kickstarter projects or crowdfunding projects that get funded are being done in earnest, so there's very little fraud. Most people are really attempting to create a real product, but at the same time, most of these people don't have a lot of experience. So somewhere between 75% and 85% of projects are delayed. So it's very common to see these sorts of delays. So one thing that manufacturers and large firms can think about is, how do I go and help out the projects that look like they're interesting, both as potential investors, as potential assistants in making things happen, and even as some ways of getting employees that might be really innovative or interesting. So you can actually directly intervene because it's all a very public process. Another thing that you can do is look at the trends on Kickstarter and get a sense of what's actually happening, what's interesting to consumers. In fact, venture capitalists increasingly ask people who are creating consumer-facing products to first put those on Kickstarter to see if there's any demand for them. So I think there's a lot of really interesting things you could do. You could even do your own kind of crowdfunding initiatives inside of companies. So there's a lot of really exciting areas. This is very cutting edge. So we don't have all the answers yet, but we're working on them.